Let's be honest for a second. Everyone has a version of themselves they hide from the world. It's that part of you that feels a real, visceral sting of envy when your best friend announces their engagement or a big promotion. That part that has those forbidden, even intrusive thoughts that make you really question your own character. It's that sudden flash of rage that just seems to flare up from nowhere over a minor inconvenience. And then there's that secret gnawing foundational fear that in some deep down way you were just not good enough. It's the entire collection of thoughts, feelings, and impulses that you would be absolutely mortified for anyone else to see. We spend so much of our lives, so much precious energy, building an elaborate fortress around this hidden self. We are architects of our own internal prisons. We push these uncomfortable truths down into the dungeon, plastering over the cracks in our facade with a bright smile, with relentless ambition, with the carefully curated person we think we should be. We become performers in our own lives, and frankly, it's exhausting. It's a full-time job maintaining the mask, and the strain of it can leave us feeling disconnected, anxious, and perpetually on guard. But what if I told you that this constant, draining internal battle is the very thing holding you back from the life you crave? What if the energy you expend hiding from yourself, that's the exact energy you need to build something magnificent? And what if turning to face that so-called dark side is the only way to stop it from secretly running your life and sabotaging your own happiness? A century ago, the revolutionary Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung proposed a radical idea, one that ran counter to the prevailing wisdom of his time. He suggested that inside this hidden, rejected self, what he so aptly named the shadow, lies the key to our wholeness, our creativity, our vitality, and our most authentic, unshakable power. This journey isn't about some spiritual exorcism to get rid of your dark side. It's about turning to face it, to understand it, and to integrate it. And that's the profound journey we're going on today. A deep dive into what the shadow is, how it hijacks your life from the background, and most importantly, the practical, actionable steps of shadow work. The courageous process of integrating this hidden self to become the person you were always meant to be. Before you can discover a solution, you have to fully and unflinchingly diagnose the problem. And the problem here is something every single one of us experiences in some form. The quiet, nagging, and sometimes deafeningly loud feeling of being your own worst enemy. It's the strange sense that you are both the driver of your car and the one laying nail strips on the road ahead. Think about the recurring patterns in your life, the cycles that seem to repeat no matter how hard you try to break them. Do you ever get right to the very edge of a huge success, like a wonderful new relationship, a massive career breakthrough, or a hard-won fitness goal, only to do something that completely and utterly sabotages it? You miss the crucial deadline. You pick a devastating fight with your partner over something trivial. Or you binge on junk food the night before you hit your goal weight. It feels maddeningly irrational, as if one part of you is desperately trying to build a better life, while another, hidden part, is just as desperately tearing it all down, brick by brick. That is the shadow in action. As Jung powerfully wrote, a man who is possessed by his shadow is always standing in his own light and falling into his own traps, living below his own level. You are tripped up, not by external obstacles, but by a trap you laid for yourself unconsciously. Or how about those moments when your emotional reaction is completely, wildly out of proportion to the event that triggered it? Someone makes a casual, offhand comment about your work, and you feel a hot, volcanic surge of rage or shame that ruins your entire day. A friend seems a little distant over text, and you immediately spiral into a black hole of abandonment, convinced you've been rejected. These emotional volcanoes are pure shadow material, erupting into your conscious life. They represent the vast reservoirs of pent-up anger, fear, or shame that have been simmering just below the surface, compressed and ignored, just waiting for a tiny crack in your composure to burst through. The reaction isn't about the current situation. It's about the accumulated pressure of everything you've refused to feel. But perhaps the most common, and certainly the trickiest way the shadow reveals itself, is through a psychological mechanism Jung called projection. Have you ever met someone and felt an instant, inexplicable, and intensely irrational dislike for them? Before they've even had a chance to prove themselves, you've immediately labeled them as arrogant, lazy, incompetent, or a desperate attention hog. Jung's brilliant insight was that the specific traits that drive us the most insane in other people are often the very qualities we have refused to see and accept in ourselves. When we deny a part of our own personality, be it our own arrogance, our own laziness, or our own need for attention, it doesn't just vanish into thin air. We simply lose conscious control over it. And our psyche, in an attempt to get us to look at it, projects it onto the nearest available screen. Other people. We see our own buried greed in our ambitious coworker. We see our own secret desire to slack off and be unproductive in our relaxed family member. We see our own unacknowledged need for the spotlight in our outgoing and charismatic friend. This isn't just some weird psychological quirk. It's the source of immense personal and interpersonal pain. It poisons our relationships, turning us into judgmental, intolerant, and, well, critical people. We form opinions about others, not based on who they are, but on who we're afraid we might be. By attacking them for their perceived flaws, we're unconsciously trying to attack and keep our own shadow locked away. As Jung wisely and ominously said, and this is powerful, when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. In other words, if you don't turn inward and consciously deal with your own demons, you'll be forced to meet them. They'll show up in the form of people and repeating patterns that haunt your external life. This all leads to that chronic, debilitating feeling of being a fraud, what modern psychology has termed imposter syndrome. It's the persistent, exhausting tension between the mask you wear for the world, the persona, as Jung called it, and all the parts of you that you've disowned and locked away. The more perfect, polished, and flawless the mask, the larger and darker the shadow grows behind it. This, in turn, amplifies the quiet, persistent terror of being, well, found out, the fear that one day the mask will slip and everyone will see the real you, the you that you've deemed unacceptable. This inner split, it's profoundly draining. I mean, it kills your energy, it stifles your creativity, and it just leaves you feeling like you're playing a role in your own life, instead of truly living it. The bottom line really is this: the more you hide from yourself, the less whole you are. And the more your life is, well, controlled by powerful, unconscious forces you can't even see. To fix these deeply rooted problems, we need to go from the symptoms to the root cause. We need to move beyond the what and understand the why. And our guide on this expedition into the interior world is Carl Jung, a true pioneer who drew a map of the human psyche. That's a vast, uncharted territory inside us all. On that map, one of the most critical and unavoidable landmarks is the shadow. So what exactly is it then? In the simplest terms, the shadow is the unconscious, unlived, and repressed side of your personality. It's a psychic container, a metaphorical dark bag you carry on your back that holds everything about yourself that you've rejected, disowned, or repressed. This includes not just negative things, like our primal instincts for aggression and power, our socially awkward impulses, our secret shames, our perceived weaknesses, and our deepest insecurities. It can also contain positive traits that we were taught to suppress. As Jung himself defined it, the shadow is the thing a person has no wish to be. This entire process of shadow making, no, we create it. As children, we're incredibly attuned to the spoken and unspoken signals from our environment. We quickly learn from parents, teachers, friends, and society at large what is good and what is bad. We receive praise, love, and acceptance for being polite, compliant, and quiet. But then, we're corrected, shamed, or even punished for being too angry, too selfish, too loud, or too needy. So, to ensure our survival and maintain our connection to our caregivers, we begin to build our identity around those good, acceptable traits. We construct what Jung called the persona. The persona is that idealized mask we present to the world, the good son, the perfect student, the responsible employee, the selfless partner. It's our public relations manager, designed to make us acceptable to society. But what happens to all the parts of us that don't fit the chosen mask? The jealousy, the rage, the raw ambition, the vulnerability, the neediness. They don't simply disappear when we decide we don't like them. They are actively shoved down into the unconscious, pushed into that dark bag on our back. And so, the shadow is formed. It is the inevitable consequence of having a persona. You cannot have a front without a back. You cannot have a curated public image without a neglected private reality. You cannot have light without a shadow. Now, it is absolutely critical to understand this point. The shadow is not inherently evil. It is simply unseen. To call it the dark side is a bit of a misnomer. It's more accurately the unlit side. It's our wild, untamed animal nature. And as such, it's a source of incredible vitality, powerful instincts, boundless creativity, and gut feelings. It's where our life force resides. But by denying it, by pushing it into the darkness and pretending it doesn't exist, we make it dangerous. When we repress these powerful parts of ourselves, they don't go away. They go underground. And down there, in the darkness of the unconscious, they begin to fester, mutate, and gain autonomous power, acting like a rogue, primitive personality, operating outside of our conscious control. This is precisely why we self-sabotage. It's why we have explosive, irrational outbursts. The shadow is screaming to be seen, to be acknowledged. It's a vital, energetic part of you that's been locked in the basement of your psyche. And it's banging on the door, rattling the windows, demanding to be let into the house of your conscious personality. Jung noted that the more we repress the shadow, the blacker and denser it is. It forms an unconscious snag, thwarting our most well-meant intentions. This dynamic creates a huge, painful split inside of us. Your conscious mind, your ego, is at the helm of the ship, trying to steer your life in one direction, toward success, stability, and what you perceive as goodness. But the shadow, this powerful, unseen, unconscious force, it has its hands on the rudder, yanking the ship in a completely different direction. And the result? It's a life of chronic anxiety, inner conflict, and that constant exhausting feeling that you're at war with yourself. Jung's diagnosis is ultimately a message of profound hope. The suffering you feel from self-sabotage, emotional volatility, and inner turmoil is not a sign that you're fundamentally broken or flawed. It is a sign that you are incomplete. You've disowned a critical, powerful part of yourself, and your psyche is sending out increasingly desperate signals, begging you to become whole again. The symptoms are a call to action. They're a summons for you to turn around, to find the courage to unlock that basement door, and finally face what you've hidden there. Understanding the shadow is the diagnosis. Integrating it is the prescription for healing. This process, which Jung and his followers called shadow work, isn't about defeating, conquering, or destroying your shadow. That's the exact kind of combative thinking that created the problem in the first place. The goal is integration. It's the courageous act of bringing the hidden, disowned parts of your shadow into the light of your conscious awareness, accepting them without judgment, and weaving them back into the rich tapestry of who you are. It's a journey of radical self-acceptance, profound honesty, and immense courage. So how do we actually begin this transformative work? You know, it's not a one-time fix, but a lifelong practice. Here are 5 practical and powerful ways to begin. Become the neutral observer. The first, most fundamental, and most important step is to simply watch yourself without judgment. The shadow thrives in darkness and loves to take over when you're running on autopilot. The practice here is to introduce the light of conscious awareness into your daily life. It's the simple yet profound act of noticing. Start to notice your emotional flashes throughout the day. When you feel that sharp pang of jealousy, that hot wave of shame, or that cold surge of anxiety, your lifelong habit is to either immediately react and lash out, or to immediately suppress it and pretend it's not there. The new practice is to do neither. Just pause, take a conscious breath, and look at the feeling with a sense of detached curiosity. Ask yourself, how interesting? What is this feeling, really? Where do I physically feel it in my body? A tightness in my chest? A knot in my stomach? What specific thought or event just triggered it? Imagine you're a scientist studying a new, fascinating phenomenon. You're not there to condemn it or praise it, but simply to observe and understand it. This simple act of mindful observation creates a tiny but crucial bit of space between the stimulus and your reaction. In that space, you go from being a victim of your unconscious feelings to being a witness to them. And that's where all your power lies. For the first time, you're not possessed by the emotion. You're simply aware of it. Doing this consistently, moment by moment, day by day, is the foundation upon which all other shadow work is built. As we discussed, projection is the shadow's primary way of communicating with you. It's how your unconscious sends you registered mail. Jung gave us the ultimate clue for this work when he said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." So the next practice is to start treating your intense emotional judgments of other people like personalized messages from your own shadow. Think about the people who really get under your skin, who provoke a strong, visceral reaction in you. Make a mental or physical list. What is it about them that's so intensely annoying? Is it their perceived arrogance, their neediness, their laziness, or their loud-mouthed confidence? Now comes the difficult but transformative part. For each trait you've identified, you must ask yourself with radical, unflinching honesty, is there any small, unacknowledged part of me that is also like this? Or, a more subtle question, is there a part of me that secretly wants to be this way, but I have forbidden myself from ever expressing it? For example, let's say you can't stand your coworker who you see as lazy and entitled. The projection might not mean you're secretly a lazy person. It might mean that you've completely repressed your own deep need for rest, play, and self-compassion. Perhaps you were taught in childhood that your only value lies in being relentlessly productive, so you've disowned your own natural desire to just chill out and do nothing. Your coworker, by being so unapologetically relaxed, is poking at that caged, starving part of you. Your intense irritation is a giant, flaming arrow. It's pointing directly back to a piece of yourself you desperately need to reclaim for the sake of your own balance and well-being. This work takes serious guts and humility, but every time you withdraw a projection, you take back a piece of your own psychic energy, and your relationships become clearer, cleaner, and so much more real. Number 3. Have a conversation with your shadow. The shadow doesn't communicate in clear, logical sentences. Instead, it speaks in the primal language of feelings, symbols, urges, and images. One of the most effective ways to begin translating this language, though, is through intentional journaling. But this isn't just a Dear Diary entry about what you did today. Oh no, it's an active, intentional, and often intense conversation with your own unconscious. So find a quiet time and space where you won't be interrupted. You can begin with specific prompts designed to, lure the shadow out of hiding. Like, what specific situations or types of people trigger the most intense emotional reactions in me? And why? What parts of myself do I desperately try to hide from others, and even from myself? What is the biggest lie I consistently tell myself about who I am? When have I felt intense envy, and what did that person have or do that I secretly want for myself? And if my anger could speak, what would it scream? If my fear could speak, what would it whisper? Now, the key here is to write without a filter. Don't worry about grammar or spelling or making sense. Just give yourself permission to be messy, contradictory, and even, ugly on the page. You're literally giving your shadow a voice, perhaps for the first time ever. And what emerges might shock or disturb you. But that's the whole point, you know? You're letting the poison come to the surface so you can finally see it, understand it, and begin to neutralize it. You can even take this a step further with a technique Jung called active imagination. You consciously personify a part of your shadow, say, your inner critic, your rage, or your insecurity. Give it a name, a shape, a form. Then, in your journal, write out a literal dialogue with it. Ask it questions like, what do you want from me? What are you trying to protect me from? What do you need to feel heard? It can feel strange and artificial at first, but it is an incredibly powerful method for transforming these feared inner enemies into understood inner allies. 4. Listen to your dreams. Jung famously called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. He believed they were direct, uncensored communications, right from the deepest parts of our psyche. In this nightly theater, the shadow is often the star of the show. Pay very close attention to the figures in your dreams who chase you, attack you, threaten you, or fill you with dread. These figures, like the monster, the pursuer, the criminal, or the outcast, they're almost always symbolic representations of your own shadow. Your instinct in the dream, it's to run, to fight, or to hide. But the work of integration is to, upon waking, metaphorically turn and face these figures. When you wake from such a dream, immediately write it down, in as much detail as you can remember. Then, take a moment to reflect on that shadow figure. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it want? And, if it could speak, what would it say? That monster chasing you down a dark alley? It might be your own repressed rage, something you've deemed monstrous. And the shadowy pursuer you can't escape? That could be your own buried ambition, one you're just afraid to embrace. By engaging with your dreams in this way, you're learning the secret symbolic language of your very own soul. Okay, so point number 5. Find your golden shadow. This is often the most surprising, delightful, and truly beautiful part of the entire process. You see, the shadow doesn't just hold your dark stuff. like your anger, greed, and fear. No. It also contains your gold, your hidden talents, your untapped potential, your radiant confidence, and all those positive qualities that, for some reason, you felt you had to repress. Think about it. Maybe you were told as a child that being assertive and taking charge was bossy or unladylike. So what did you do? You buried your powerful, natural leadership skills. Or perhaps your artistic passions were dismissed as unrealistic or, a waste of time. And so you shoved your immense creativity deep into the shadow. Maybe you were even shamed for being too sensitive or too emotional, which led you to shut down your incredible innate capacity for empathy and connection. All of these amazing light-filled traits, they're simply lying dormant in your shadow, just waiting to be rediscovered. Now the golden shadow, it shows up in projection too. But instead of irritation and judgment, this time it manifests as awe, idealization, deep admiration, and sometimes even a painful form of envy. So who are the people you deeply admire, the ones you really put on a pedestal? What is it about them that feels so powerful, so out of reach? Is it their unshakable confidence, their effortless freedom, their profound creativity, or perhaps their courage? The work here, then, is to perform a truly radical act of ownership, to realize that the very qualities you idolize in others are, in fact, just a mirror of your own hidden, unlived potential. That light you see in them, it's a reflection of the unignited light inside you. Start by consciously owning these qualities. For every person you admire, write down that specific trait, and then affirm to yourself, "This quality also exists in me. I have permission to cultivate it." This is the final amazing twist in this journey. By having the courage to face your darkness, you actually unlock your greatest and most brilliant light. The journey into the shadow is the classic hero's journey, a story told in myths and legends, across cultures and throughout time. It's the descent into the dark cave where you must confront the dragon, and in doing so, you find the treasure you were seeking. The incredible life-altering insight from Carl Jung is that our minds are constantly naturally striving for balance, for wholeness. The problems that plague us, the self-sabotage, the irrational anger, the painful projections, the imposter syndrome, they're not punishments for being flawed. No, they are a call to adventure. They're a sacred summons from the depths of your soul, asking you to stop living a divided life and become more of who you truly are. To ignore the shadow is to choose to live a half-life, forever fighting a part of yourself that you can't see and can therefore never overcome. It's to remain a victim of your own unconscious patterns, but to turn and face it, to engage with it, to listen to its messages, and to integrate its energy. That's to embark on the most meaningful and rewarding journey there is. The journey back to your whole, authentic, and powerful self. It's the profound discovery that the very things you were most afraid of in yourself actually hold the keys to your liberation and your greatest strength. As Carl Jung so powerfully stated, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This work isn't easy, it isn't quick, and it requires a deep well of courage. But the reward is nothing less than getting your own soul back. This was a deep one. And this journey of shadow work? It's intensely personal and different for everyone. I'm genuinely curious. Which part of this process hit home for you the most? Is it the idea of projection and recognizing yourself in others? Or perhaps the hopeful concept of discovering your golden shadow? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. When we share our stories, we break the illusion of isolation and realize we aren't walking this challenging path alone. And if you found something valuable in this exploration today, please, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. We'll be doing many more deep dives into the psychology, philosophy, and the practical art of living a more conscious and authentic life.